Hi, everyone. I'm Mathilde Collin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Front. Over the years, I've tried to share my journey as a leader. Along the way, everything I've learned has been by talking to people that are more experienced than me and or wiser than me. And this is what I'll be doing today. I'm here with Mailchimp Chief Technology Officer Eric Muntz to talk about how Mailchimp is adapting during this pandemic. As a company, they've implemented a lot of changes rapidly in order to support their customers. And today what we will talk about is what can business leaders do to help support one of the hardest hit sectors of the economy, which is small businesses. So let's try to learn as much as possible from Eric today. Eric, thank you so much for jumping on Zoom and having this chat with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And thanks for the great intro. I'm not sure I'd say more wise or anything like that. But we'll see. Hopefully, folks can learn something.
We'll see at the end of this interview. So maybe for people who don't know you, we can just start with an introduction of who you are. What do you do at Mailchimp?
Yeah. So as you noted, I'm the CTO. It means I run all of technology here. So today that's about 370 or so folks in engineering. It also includes corporate IT. And it runs everything across our technology stack. So everything deep in the back end, infrastructure-wise, all the servers and network and security and all of that, to the sort of middle tier of our frameworks and our support for product development, and then our product development team, including back-end and front-end engineers, mobile engineers, and all of that. And mostly what I do, everyone says, well, what does that actually mean that you do day to day? And mostly what I'm doing day to day is working with other business leaders to help drive our business forward with the lens of technology.
The story of us being connected is I actually reached out to Ben Chestnut, who's the CEO of Mailchimp, and I said, I want to talk about how companies are adapting, how leaders are adapting to this pandemic. And he said, Eric is the best person to talk about it. So we can jump right in, and maybe we can start with the culture of Mailchimp. Mailchimp has a great culture. People are happy to go to work every day. I would love to know what the company has done different so that despite everything that's going on, you keep employees that are happy to go to work every day.
It's not been easy. I think it hasn't been easy for anyone in the world. And we had a pretty good starting point, right? We started out with a good culture. So, and a culture of really caring about our people and really listening and deeply understanding what's going on. We're also pretty distributed, and the majority of that distributed workforce is in engineering. So we have offices in Oakland, Brooklyn, as well as Atlanta, where we're headquartered, where we're sort of known to be headquartered. And then we have folks all across the country. And so it sort of hit, and the pandemic hit in these epicenters in different ways. So the first thing we had to do was learn to meet people where they were and realize that folks in Brooklyn or Oakland were maybe in different places than folks in Atlanta were, or folks who were already working from home in, say, Colorado or wherever else were in different places, and get really good at listening and talking with our employees and understanding what it was they needed. Some of the other things we did was really updated our sick time and made sure we extended benefits and mental health policies and PTO policies and all of that to account for parents who are now colleagues, teachers, primary caregivers, like everything you can imagine under the sun. But really, it's all about finding ways to empathize with all the different, aspects of employees you've got around, and really listening and trying to meet people where they are.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you done, in terms of communication, have you done anything differently?
We haven't really done too much because we were already pretty heavily Slack-based and Zoom-based.
Got it.
So we've been sticking with that. I'd say the things we've been doing mostly differently are, and it depends on team to team. So in engineering, the engineering leadership team, someone presented a great idea that, hey, maybe we have a channel called Engine Outs, which is just like where announcements come out for all of engineering to watch. Someone had the idea of maybe every day, someone from this small leadership team, which is about 6 or 7 people, should just post something. Just, hey, here's a thing maybe you missed, an update from the company. Here's maybe something going on with a customer. Here's an update with initiative. Or like, hey, here's what I've dealt with this week. Just,
Yeah.
I've had a really rough week. I miss going out to eat tacos, and my kids are having a hard time with school from home. So we're buying Legos for the kids, and just posting daily updates. And that's not something that we did prior to the pandemic. And I think at this point now, it's something we will probably do forever because it's just really connected us in a really special and unique way.
That makes sense. Talking about the thing that will stick post-COVID, as you said, I'm sure everyone at Mailchimp is remote right now, and it's the same at Front. What parts of this new world do you think will remain in the post-pandemic world for Mailchimp?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I don't actually know the answer yet. I think it's still too new to really know what's going to stick and what's not. We are, as I said, engineering is already pretty distributed. So there's a lot of things that we will probably just take forward, like that announcement and how we do group town halls being 100% Zoom based. Another fun thing we did there is every time we do a town hall now, we reserve the last few minutes for what we call pets and kids. And like people just go and grab their kids or their dogs or cats or whatever. And we get to just kind of roll around and see everybody's new coworkers at home. I will say, there are members of the executive team who maybe weren't as open to work from home or anything like that before. They saw it, but they weren't living it the way technology sort of had to. That are like, oh, okay, I can see this. I can see how this works. And so maybe there's some changes. I don't expect us to go and shift the pendulum all the way to the other direction. And now we're one of the full-time 100% remote work from home companies.
Right.
I do think some things will stick. I think the biggest thing, as we were talking about this with the executive team, as I said, that the thing that's really hard is being in the middle land. So if you're all in the office and you're all together in a room, that's one way to have a meeting. And then if you're all remote and you're all on Zoom or Hangout or whatever, it's another way to have a meeting. That those two tend to work. Yeah, and you're like 7 people in the room and 4 people on video.
Right.
It used to not really work so well.
Yes.
And I think people are really feeling that and really internalizing that now today.
Yes.
So I think some of that will change, right? Where maybe even if we're in the office, we'll do an all Zoom meeting, but everyone's just in their offices on their laptops.
All right. So one thing that I really wanted to talk about was the customer focus that Mailchimp has always had, and even more during this pandemic. So, maybe you can tell us a bit more about what Mailchimp has implemented. But, just from reading online, I think you've introduced some price relief, you've introduced some free accounts to public service organizations, to providing .com for free for 5 years, and more. So first, can you tell us a bit more about the program that you're most proud of that you've implemented, and why you decided to implement them as fast as you did?
Yeah. Wow. One I'm most proud of. I'm so proud of all of them. It's hard to pick one out specifically. I think that the $10 million price relief fund that we set up for our customers is probably the thing that I'm most proud of, because it really just runs this complete gambit about Mailchimp as a business. It shows how much we deeply care about small business, that our mission is to empower small business. It's why we exist. It's why we get out of bed in the morning. But also that our founders have done this amazing job of building a highly sustainable business over 20 plus years. To where we're able to do that and not have to ask anyone for permission for it, and to still be able to be a solid business. Really just as a thing that just makes me feel great about working here and having worked here for a decade. And it's helped 17,000 customers around the world already to date. And that feels really good. That's a lot of small businesses. The other one is we started a thing that internally we called Get Your Business Online. And it was something we were planning for the year before this happened. And then we started to see what was happening with small businesses and specifically like service businesses that weren't necessarily online, or at least viewing themselves as online first, like gyms and other types of services like that. And then watching some of those customers trying to get online and struggle with like getting a domain and getting their website up and getting even just their starter landing pages, their starter pages where they say we're coming soon. and watching how our teams just so quickly rallied around that work. And when that happens and you see a team come together fully for the benefit of a customer and not think like, well, I'm an engineer, I'm going to worry about the engineering thing, or I'm a designer and I'm going to worry about designer, but they just get together and go, let's worry about the customer and build a great thing for the customer. It just warms my Grinch heart a bit to see folks do that and be able to do it super quickly and have it make huge impact on our customers. So I'm super proud of those initiatives.
And do you think, can you tell us a bit more about internally whether it was sometimes hard to make these decisions? Because I assume that it's always a trade-off between, the fact that at the end of the day, like every business is impacted or will be impacted. And so Mailchimp as a business is going to suffer from, part of it, is also going to benefit from part of it. But, and then, so you want to balance the health of your company. And therefore, by balancing the health of your company, of your employees and your future customers and current customers, with being as generous as possible. So how did you think about making this trade-off, and were any decisions specifically hard to make?
Yeah, it's always difficult when you make a decision, say we're going to give away $10 million, and you think, well, at the end of the year, when we talk about how revenue grew at the end of the year, there's going to be at least a $10 million gap there, right?
Yeah.
But we also know that because of COVID, there's likely to be another gap there. So yes. that then adds to it. And you say, okay, well, we have some trade-offs to think about, right? As you all know, running a business, you have to think about, okay, is this going to sustain us this year? But then what impact might it have in future years? It's tough. There's a trade-off. And of course, there's measured approaches to it. And we try to be measured with everything that we do. We continue to be wholly focused on small business and the long tail of small business, right? So Ben, our CEO, had a pretty famous or infamous statement a few years ago that he was chasing scale, not whales. And when you think about it that way, and you think about, okay, if we're here for the long term, the long haul, and we're here for the long haul of small business, how can we keep more small businesses online and outlasting the average lifespan of small business, because we've been good to them and we've got a thriving business where we can actually take a little bit of a hit and then think that, okay, maybe that's going to increase and make up for itself, maybe later this year, maybe later next year, maybe in 2 or 3 years, however long it is. It's a bit of a risk, but in business, you got to take risks sometime too. So just have a lot of conversations about weighing those things. And the majority of what we did, the $10 million price relief fund wasn't part of this, but the majority of what we did was already planned for the year. Some of it we just expedited or moved forward a little bit, right? So we had planned on websites and selling domains and all of that. That was already in the mix. We just expedited it. We didn't plan on giving away $10 million to our customers, but that's where trade-offs come in.
Yeah, makes sense. I actually, I was reading online and I noticed that one of Mailchimp's motto is listen hard, change fast, which I think like the change fast, as like we talked about it and you did it really well. I'm curious, by listening to your customers and specifically small businesses, what have you heard? Like what do you think is their state of mind? What do they struggle most with? And understanding that, given you have such a strong base and that's also diverse, can also help everyone who is listening to this interview understand what they can do to support them better.
Yeah, for sure. Really good question. Listening hard is hard. And especially during a pandemic when really the word of the day is uncertainty, right? So with small businesses, they're just super uncertain. Am I going to get help from the government? Are my customers going to continue to be able to pay me? Are they still going to want my service? What of my service are they going to want? So one of the things that's really been helpful for our customers and us talking with our customers this year is we sort of quietly launched surveys at the beginning of the year. And we didn't really put a whole lot of marketing fanfare behind it. We just launched it and customers saw them and started using them. And so, a lot of it is about advice and just like, what is good old fashioned best practices in marketing, right? And trying to get customers that have never been online and never done that type of marketing to get online and get going with digital marketing and understand how to do it. And timing worked out fairly well. We acquired a media agency in London called Courier Media. And they've been putting out a weekly newsletter that's best practices for small businesses. And we've been really leaning into that and putting out guides. Our support team toward the end of last year or mid last year started webinars. And we've been putting those up on YouTube and getting really great responses from them, and teaming up with our giant amount of partners we've got out there that help our customers, and trying to get them in front of customers to help them understand, how to go online and really get help with digital marketing. So it really has been like, there's some product features to it, but then there's a whole lot of just like, this is how you do marketing. This is how you listen to your customers, and listening to your customers is super, super, super important. This is how you do it. Here's some tools to do it. Here's some guidance to do it, and kind of combine all those things in the best practices.
Thanks for doing that.
If they're going to do one thing, I'd say subscribe to that Courier newsletter, because then they don't have to Google it. It just shows up in their inbox and it's like, here's advice on things to do.
Well, I know we only have a few minutes left. I have two last questions. So the first one is, when I was preparing this interview, I was looking at what your path, like your career path has been. And, you know better than I do, but if I read correctly, you started in tech support, you did QA, you wrote a BlackBerry app. So you started as an individual contributor, and then you climbed the ladder. Now you're at a C-level. And if you think about getting started again in this economy, do you think that same path would be available? And specifically, like, what advice would you give either your team or anyone that's asking you this question about growing in this environment where we know that growth in the next few TBD years is not gonna look the same as the past few years?
So I think part of that is that there is still a huge need for technologists and people who understand technology and people who can build software. We have an apprenticeship program at Mailchimp where we take folks from non-traditional backgrounds and bring them into engineering. We actually do it for all disciplines, but it started in engineering and it's mainly focused in engineering. And we onboarded a class of apprentices during the pandemic. So they started full-time work from home. They got their computers from IT at home and all of that. So I do still think non-traditional opportunities are available because I've seen them firsthand, and I see there's still a huge need for folks in technology. Now, whether that's available to get to the C-suite, I'm not really sure. My crystal ball says or my magic 8-ball would say, too soon to tell, ask later. But so much of that, it's hard for me to say. It would have been hard for me to say that even a year ago, because so much of that is based on timing and a good bit of luck, and having a CEO who was supportive of me learning my way through leadership and growing a team, and seeing the value of taking someone who helped grow the business and is learning their way into leadership, of being on the C-suite, right? So there's so much mixed up in there that I'm not sure that pandemic really changes it that much.
Do you have one final piece of advice for any leader that's going through this challenging time and that needs to rethink about how they are the best leader they can be?
Yeah, I would say it's probably too easy an answer, but I'm going to steal the Mailchimp motto and say, listen hard, change fast.
So thank you so much for having, spend the time with me. I personally learned a lot. I know that our audience will learn a lot as well. Good luck with everything that's going on. And if I can return the favor anytime, I'm one email away, so you can reach out. Thanks, Eric.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, and appreciated the conversation. It was real fun.